Welcome to the EDDs. I'm Mila Palamar, and I'm here today with Biedler from Water Division of UNESCO and Paolo Ronco from Joint Research Center of the European Commission. And today we're going to touch upon such a pertinent topic as water. And I have questions to both of you gentlemen, and we will start with you, Murray. So can you tell us, please, what do you see as the biggest challenge for people and water?
The biggest challenge for people and water is essentially access, and it's access to clean water, it's access to water of good quality, and it's access to safe water. And it's not as easy as it sounds. There's a number of factors that are required to provide access. First of all, obviously, you need to treat the water. We need good clean water. But beyond that, there are technical implications and then social implications and political implications. Paolo, you have some comments.
Yeah, well, we're working together, JRC, European Commission and UNESCO, in this big initiative that is the Water Center of Excellence, that is a very outstanding initiative about impacting on water policy in Africa by South-South cooperation. It's an initiative of the African Union, so it's fully embedded by the African governments. And there are two components, actually. We're working on the research performances, try to rise and to improve the impact of research over water on policymakers. And second component is the capacity building component. We are very much focused on rising capacity of younger professionals in Africa, in some selected countries of Africa.
Right. And the challenge is also, when we're looking at for human capacity development, it's often been mentioned that there's a lack of appropriate skills, there's a lack of qualified professionals to work inside the water sector. But essentially, the water sector itself, which is the group of service providers, the group of water regulators, its professionals that work in water management, and the technicians, they all need to function together. So we need to get the human skills to develop at all levels, even down to low-level technical and vocational. Now, that in itself is a challenge because that blocks the water sector. But once you have those people in place, we still need an institutional structure. So we need policies and regulations which allow the water sector and the actors to function and operate at their huge potential. So from the UNESCO side, part of what we're doing at the moment is not just to automatically set up training programs for people to improve their skills or to develop skilled professionals to fill in gaps. First, we go into the water sector to identify what the gaps actually are, what's missing, and making a sector dysfunctional and trying to correct that.
And Paolo, I have a follow-up question to you about your project. What would you call the greatest achievement of the project so far?
We have been putting together 15 university, academia, and research institutes across Africa. There are two networks, one in the southern and one in the western Africa. We are now establishing also an eastern and central network of center of excellence. All of them, they are working together in research over water issues. That means, in a broader sense, water, energy, agriculture, and ecosystem, all driven by water and access to water, as Mari said, but all of them linked together very much, try to assure the equitable and fair access and use of water resources across the continent. Besides this, we are also raising the research performances. So one of the ultimate goal is to improve the research the impact of research on policymakers. So there is a strong link between this network of academia and research centers and the policymaker, decision maker, such as government, but also river basin authorities, regional economic communities, and so forth. This is the research component that is very much focused on rising the impact of research on water issues in Africa. Try to get access, people, the poor in particular, to water.
Thank you. And Murray, speaking about water and water challenges in broader sense, what would you say is the role of young people in the context of these challenges? What we as young people can do to contribute to be part of the action towards the sustainable development goals related to water?
There's, especially in the African continent, there's a few elements that are important to consider. One is just purely demographic, that in a number of countries, for a variety of unfortunate health emergencies with HIV/AIDS and then some other security-related challenges, some countries actually have a youth population which covers almost 60% of the total demographic. And we're talking youth here, not children, but youth between the ages of 18 almost up to 30 years old. So they are present there in any case, and they are the majority population. The role that they can play in there also is to engage more into the gaps in the water sector, be more active in the educational aspects of things, working with the higher education institutions, polytechnics. So there's a place for them to step up to and participate in the water sector, but it's not an automatic and it's not a given. So that requires also the work that we're engaged with the JRC, and also with the institutions. Our partners, the Centers of Excellence, are all universities which are engaged in water science and research, but that includes education. So they have classic curricula which they've developed over many years. Part of what we're looking at now, once we identify the needs, is working with our partners to develop a flexible curricula which addresses priority problems and engaging youth and bringing them in to address directly those priority problems. So once they leave the institution, there is a place for them and there's a role for them. And once they're engaged in the water sector like that, the second component, which is just as important, they're now in place to be part of a stakeholder group, of which they're not really part of at the moment. And that's very important, so we can have a youth advocacy from a youth perspective with youth as a stakeholder.
Great, thank you for the answer. Paolo, what about your perspective on this? What's the role of youth for water and water challenges?
Well, now the issue is, as Murray said before, the ultimate goal is to improve access to water to people. That's the main and the final goal we have to achieve, actually, and we're working for that from the side of the academia, the research performed by Africa, done for Africa, actually. By, the added value is doing it in networking. So breaking down barriers, breaking down silos of knowledge, trying to put the institution working together. The institution belongs to different environment, to different states, to different countries, to different regions, having different problems, but sharing the fact of fighting against the unaccess to water. That is the most important challenge we are facing. But the issue is also the role played by institutions such as the European Commission or UNESCO in facilitating these processes. But a question for you, Mila. What do you think is the role of a young activist as you are in the water sector? What do you think the most important challenge in the water is, in Africa in particular, if you are experienced on that?
Yeah, so just in general, I think that our generation and what we seek to bring in solving all the pertinent challenges of today is to be united, to show that the world is a community and we cannot define or divide our and their problems anymore. So European youth should be as engaged and passionate and interested about the challenges of African youth as about each other. So I think this is the number one priority, is that we have to realize that all the problems, especially the ones related to such a unique and scarce resource as water, that are common challenges, and so that we support each other and we show interest in what's happening. And so this, of course, applies to the entire SDG framework. Speaking in particular about the water, I think that first of all, we have to understand as the generation that water is not something given, is that something we have to protect, something we have to value, and something that has to be a priority. Because sometimes, and quite often, we are accused, as young people, we're accused of taking a lot for granted. And water is probably one of those things. So I think this is an important point here. We have to understand ourselves that water is something we should value and something that is not given, but something we have to work for.
Okay, and I have a question also. How do you see the role of youth and the older experienced actors in the sector, like Paolo and myself?
First of all, it's all about listening, I think. So if we manage to listen to each other and if we manage to hear the points of each other, then we will see a mutually beneficial cooperation. So I think that generations have to get together as we get together at this table today, and this is why it's so important that we have to talk to each other and listen to each other. And then we talk about challenges like water. As I've mentioned before, this challenge it's common. It's related to every single person on the planet, and this is something everybody can relate to. So this is one of those matters that can become a common ground for further dialogue. For the entire framework of the Sustainable Development Goals. So I would say that we have to start with listening, and we have to acknowledge that every generation can have a point and expertise and perspective that has to be listened to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mila.
Thank you very much for being here with us, and thank you for taking the time to join the Sustainable Development Goals Studio. It was great to have you here, and I wish you good luck with your project.
Good luck for you. Huh?
Yeah, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.